I guess before we get into where you're at now, I guess it's kind of good to talk about just where you started. I think, getting the being a sports agent is a dream for a lot of people, but getting started in that is always difficult. So how did, you get first started in this whole thing?
I tell people I fell into it. I wasn't planning on being a sports agent.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I was a finance major in college, and I wanted to be a financial analyst, to be honest. I wanted to be in a finance world. So I was transferring schools, and I bumped into a friend at that time I haven't seen in 8 years. Okay. And we had this conversation, like, what do you want to do with your life, right? Like, what do you want to do after college? And my friend was actually working at Bear Stearns.
Bear Stearns, okay.
At that time. And he was selling derivatives, and he was an assistant coach at John Jay College. So I said, look, man, maybe I want to be, I want to be a financial analyst. And he looked at me, he said, I know you, man. I don't think you want to do that. And I said, why not? I mean, what you mean? You're in the, finance industry. Tell me. He started telling me about the finance industry. I said, well, maybe I want to be a stockbroker. And I said, now, you know what? I just seen the movie Boiler Room, and I won't be able to stomach lying to an elder person about, buying stocks and stuff. I said, maybe a coach. And the last one was an agent. And he said, an agent? He said, man, I have a guy that's like my dad. He runs his own agency. I can give him a call and get you an internship. And at that time, I was looking for internships. Washington Mutual, Citibank, Chase, you name it, everywhere. And I couldn't find one, right? So he said, give me a number. I gave him my number. I didn't believe him at all. I said, take my number. Conversation ended. 2 months later, I'm walking into my CIS class, computer class, and I'm about to sit down. He calls me and he says, hey, what's up, man? This is, Larry. I said, what's up, man? What's going on? He says, I got you the internship. And I said, no way, man, you're lying. So I immediately gathered my belongings. I looked at the professor and I said, hey, man, I'll check you out next week. And I ran out of the class and I went to the corner pizza shop and I started dialing the agent. And I kept calling him. He didn't want to pick up. Finally got him on the phone and gave me like 3 minutes. I gave him my spill.
Right.
And I said, man, I have to come into your office. I want to, I want to learn the business. And he said, all right, let me call you back. Never called me back. 2 days later, I get him on the phone.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? Come to my office. And the best part about it was that his office was inside the Mercantile Exchange building. I don't know if you know what that is. The Merc at those days was the money building in New York. That's where all the day trading happened. Okay. So he shared an office with a guy by the name of Russell Rosenthal, which was like the Michael Jordan of oil trading. And downstairs was Mark Fisher, which people that know the finance industry, Mark Fisher is like the well oil trading. This guy is unbelievable. And I had a chance to see both sides of the industry, right? The finance industry, the sports industry. And I fell in love with sports, man. I was like, I can't do what they do, finance, the trading stuff. And I stayed in it. I stayed in it, man. And here I am today.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always interesting how we, I guess, fall into things. I mean, you kind of get a taste for what you like. But I feel like, you point to this kind of the tenacity or just being persistent and stubborn. I don't know. I feel like when you get involved with these types of media in general or entertainment or being involved in some way, it's usually about being just extremely persistent and going after it and showing someone you want it until you get that opportunity, I guess.
You have to be persistent. Man, I tell anybody that works for me or interns for me, you have to be persistent in anything that you believe you want to do, right? That's one. The second thing is you have to have passion, right? If I grew up playing basketball, that was my livelihood. That's what got me out of the projects, and got me to college and got me through college, and it was something I loved to do when I was a kid, right? For 20-something years. And so if you love something and you believe you can make it a career, just be persistent and believe in it, and things will work out. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing that day.
Right.
I just knew I had to call and get this guy on the phone, right? And I guess it was persistence, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day. If you don't try, you kind of just never get anywhere. Eventually, someone will see you're passionate about what you want to do, and will open the door even just a little bit. Even myself, that's kind of how I got started doing what I was doing. I was just like, I just had like a goal in mind, like I want to do this, and I need to figure out who to get in touch with to let me in the door, and that ultimately led to kind of everything else. But even now, trying to grow, and it's all about just, all right, I did that back then and been doing it, but to take it to the next level, you have to kind of just be even more about it than you were before, which is always kind of like, you have to be mentally prepared for that.
Yeah. You can never lose. I tell people you have to have stickability.
There you go, stickability.
You have to have stickability, and you can never lose. You can never take your eye off the prize, right? One thing, one of the agents I used to work for, he's a really big agent now. He told me one day, we were in Vegas in summer league, and he said, Cervando, he said, in this business, you got to keep your head down.
Mm-hmm.
Once you pick your head up, they're gonna shoot you.
True.
Keep your head down.
French warfare.
Yeah, and stay focused. Stay focused. Mm-hmm. And that stayed with me for a very long time.
For sure. So, well, I guess after this internship, you kind of learned the ins and outs of it. You saw like, this is something I wanted to do. But, obviously signing the first client is kind of, I'm sure, like the moment where you said, okay, you kind of needed that to happen in order to say, oh, I can actually do this for real. So like, who was your first client, and how'd you wind up?
It was, my first client was Eric Williams from UMass.
Okay.
University of UMass, Big E. I was still an intern when I signed him.
Oh, nice.
I was still an intern, and Big E signed, and I was so excited because I got this kid from UMass that played at UMass and Syracuse, played at Syracuse, and everybody knew his name in the streets here in New York, and so I was excited, and worked with him for about, I think it was 4 years before he called it quits. But that was my first taste of the business,
Then how did you convince him to sign with an intern?
Hey man, I hustled, and I was persistent. I was persistent. I sat with him, and we had a conversation, and we just connected. And I think Eric at the time was looking for a guy that was going to work, right? Mm-hmm. And I think he just felt like I was that guy. This guy's just he's young, he has a lot of energy. He's gonna go out there and try to get it done for me. And he believed in me.
Gotcha. Well, things have definitely progressed since then, communication-wise, like how we can contact people. So, I mean, not to give away any of your secret sauce, if it is secret sauce, but like when you're trying to recruit a client, I guess back then compared to today, has it gotten easier or harder? Because people get hit with, so many messages now. It's like, how do you show them you're legit? Is it DM? Is it showing up at a game? How do you get that in with them to say, even introduce yourself?
Well, first, the way I just me. First, I want to make sure that I want to work with that client, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's sitting there and analyzing the kid's potential, talent, skill, right? Because I have to, whenever I do sit with a kid, I have to be 100% honest with the potential client, right? And then the next thing is to, once you decide, hey, this is a kid I really want to work with, is then figure out a way how to get to the player, Right. And once you get to the player and you sit in front of him, it's all about just making a normal conversation. Don't try to be somebody you're not. Be as authentic as you can, and be as direct as you can, and everything will fall in its place. So my whole thing is just first see if I want to work with this player as far as on the court, right? And then figure out a way how to get get to him. Now of course I have now these days today, I have people that work with me, that know how to get to the player, or not, I know how to get to the player. Back in those days, it was different, because, the agent business was saturated, but it wasn't as saturated as it is today.
Right.
And Instagram wasn't here; it was just Facebook.
Exactly.
Right. So people were not hip on, oh, let me use social media. They were using it, but they were not letting me use social media to reach out to these new clients. So it was all about your first interaction. 90% of the time was face to face. But now your first interaction is a DM on Instagram, right? Like maybe 75% of the time, right? Before you meet the player. So, but the process has gotten tougher, but you have to learn how to really navigate to this stuff and stay true to your process, right? You got to change a little bit, but you got to stay true to your process. I'm old school. I always say it's always good to meet a person face to face.
Sure.
I always tell people you can see when the person is BSing you when you look at them in the eyes, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to DMing somebody or having a video call.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's definitely gotten harder, like you said today, because even when I started doing what I was doing, there wasn't, a plethora of social media managers. Like it really didn't even exist. The whole aspect of that job was not really a thing yet. So like the fact that you were kind of I was trying to contact like, managers or someone, they can tell I was legit, but now you get hit with so much spam. I can grow your account and and it's like, most of those guys are doing it the fake way. I can do it the real way, but it's just like separating myself through an email is so difficult. But also, how do you meet so many people at the same time without doing that? My hope is that, and probably you feel some of the same way, is that the fake kind of will, die out, because they just can't last. You can only last so long doing it the fake way. And the real ones will last because they know how to actually do it. It's a tough time because social media just open up all these lines of communication. Like anyone can be anything. And it's just like, how does someone on the other end know, like, okay, this person is legit? So you have your LinkedIn, the website, your social media page, you got the marketing, you got the agency page. And I guess it's just a matter of like hoping someone takes that, I guess, time to see like, okay, let me get on the phone and then we can meet and see that this person is actually who they say they are.
That's the only way you can see what a person is authentic, right? It's jumping on the phone and having a legit conversation and asking them questions. Right. I think a person can really weave through the lies.
Yeah. I've definitely gotten a lot of those types of questions, and then usually it's smooth sailing from there. But finding, it has to be the mutual relationship. But I'm sure you're aware of that. I'm sure you talk to a lot of athletes that are like, yeah, let's work, and then never hear from them ever again. Yeah. I'm not going to get you to talk bad about anyone, but anyway, you rep a lot of athletes in a bunch of different leagues. You have the NBA, G League, stuff overseas. I guess there's a time zones and logistics, but so how do you manage so many different leagues and time zones, and how do you do all that?
I've been doing this so long, Jason, that I just I built a process of I make sure that my guys in Europe hear from me twice a week, right? I make sure that I watch games on weekends when I'm watching the NBA, my clients play on TV, or if I'm going to an NBA game, or if I'm watching a client in the G League. I have my laptop out, I have my iPad out, I have all these different devices out trying to watch everybody play. And of course I have people that work with me that I send the games to, so the clients are definitely seeing, athlete sports management's staff around. And they know that we're out there supporting their every need. So it's just a process that I put together, man, and just making sure that we're interacting with the clients on a weekly basis.
I got you. Yeah, and the whole signing process is, I'm sure, difficult and time consuming, and tracking down so many leads. And you mentioned when we were talking over LinkedIn, Jonathan Simmons, and just that whole process getting him signed in a really tough market in 2017. So like, what is that process like? You know, when you're trying to
the 2017 free agency market was by far the worst free agency market in NBA history. You know, there was no money on the table from teams. Teams didn't want to pay money. You know, you recall there was only one player that got money that summer, and that was Tim Hardaway Jr. right by the Knicks. You know, it was a very tough place to be in for anybody that was a restricted free agent, because you have your unrestricted free agents, and you have restricted free agents, right? You know, and those people that don't know, you know, a restricted free agent is an agent is a free agent that's tied to the team, the current team they play on, right. And they have to hope that another NBA team makes an offer, and then wait 48 hours for the current NBA team to decline or match that offer, right? So when you're in that position, it's pretty tough because teams don't want to make an offer and have their money tied up for 48 hours. You know, teams want to keep moving and keep signing because everything moves so quick during free agency. Yeah. So teams that don't want to spend, then you had that ruling, right? So now it's like, oh man, what's going to happen here with Jonathan Simmons? And I think, you know, the best part, Jason, that, you know, the San Antonio Spurs, R.C. Buford and Popovich and Brian Wright, they were complete gentlemen to the process and really worked with us. You know, look, the kid went from restricted to unrestricted, you know, and got a great contract by the Orlando Magic, right? So it was just a lot of persistence by me, a lot of, you know, sitting down and putting together a plan, and that my plan had to really, you know, we had to alter the plan through the process, you know, because time was moving fast. So it's like, okay, we can't take this approach. We have to take this approach, you know. So it was a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing by myself, communicating to the client that I think that this is the next best move, and this is the move we should take. And you know, Jonathan trusted. He trusted the process, and he believed in what I was doing, and everything fell into place at the end.
Yeah, well, it's always nice when that happens because so many things I feel like when you even just, you know, I follow a lot of like soccer transfers too, and there's just like so much noise. So like if you were following the whole like Kylian Mbappe saga with like PSG and Real Madrid, and just like who's talking to who and who's offering what. But with the NBA, you know, I'm sure it's equally difficult, just like trying to cut through the noise, and you know, you're actually getting the deal that you want on the table, and then the deal is legit, and just actually getting the pen on the dotted line is you know.
just getting the team to commit to a deal, you know, getting to that point is tough. But if you have good relationships in the NBA and you're persistent and you're keeping your antennas up, right, through the process, you'll get a deal done. You'll get a good deal done for your client, and everything will work itself out.
Yeah, I guess persistence is kind of the key there again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you also represent Abdel Nader from the Sun. Mm-hmm. He's had a, you know, good career, made the playoffs every year on every team he's been on, which is pretty crazy for anyone, especially I think a second round pick. It speaks to probably his hard-nosed style, and you know, he fills a certain role on I think on a lot of teams, and he's only 28, so still in his prime, or just entering his prime maybe. What do you see in the future for him, and you know, where he's going?
You know, Abdul is a kid. I tell people this. It's funny, you know. This is a kid that was not supposed to get drafted, right? A lot of NBA teams didn't believe he was an NBA player, right? So he made it the hard way, you know. Yeah. And he's appreciative of how he made the NBA, and he's established himself as that player, right? You know, you get in there, he gets the job done, and he goes on to the next game. He'll be back. He'll be back. Right now, he's rehabbing. His rehabbing is going very well for him. He will be on the NBA roster next season for sure. And I think Abdul is hungrier this time around than what he was the first time around, right? And he's blessed. He's blessed to have gone to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Boston Celtics, right? His first year in the league. You know, he's blessed to have gone to the playoffs for OKC all his years there, and he's blessed to have gone to the finals with Phoenix. You know, and be in early in that season, be a point person, and important part of that team that made it to the finals, right? You know, so I see nothing but great things for Abdel Nader coming up here in the future. I expect him to really, you know, this time around, increase his role on whatever team he's on.
Yeah, for sure. I think after 4 or 5 years in the league, you show you can prove it. Those opportunities for more minutes eventually will come. So is that also something you look at in terms of when you're talking to NBA teams about him? Are you looking for, well, I guess what comes first? Is it the role? Is it the finances? Is it the location? Or does it depend on the player, I guess? What is
I think this time around is the fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where does he fit? Who has a need for a player like him? And I think once you find those teams, then it's about, you know, who's going to value him, right? You know, I don't think it's much about. I believe it's not much about the financing right now, the money, the compensation, because you know, when you come off an injury like this, you have to reprove yourself.
Sure.
Right? And the only way you can reprove yourself is getting to the right fit, you know, and getting to on a team that where the coaching staff and the front office really believe in the player. And I think those are really important. If when we find that situation and Abdul gets that opportunity, he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure. He plays hard, so, and he's, you know, extremely skilled, and I agree that he'll probably be fine too. And certainly has the resume under his belt.
And he's a shooter, and you need a shooter in the NBA, right? That's because you need a shooter.
Of course, and someone who can rebound, get the putbacks. If you can do all of that, I mean, someone will have a need for you on their team, I'm sure. But yeah, being that we're in 2022 and you have your TikTok and your Instagram and everything, you know, I'm sure the way athletes can market themselves today has also changed a lot from when you first started interning with, you know, back then with the Facebook page, how much could you do? But now athletes can post highlights. They can do brand deals on the side. They could literally, you know, really establish their own brand, I guess, which could be good and bad. You know, it empowers the player, but maybe also, I think in some instances I've seen in the NBA, maybe too much, where, you know, they think they're the GM of the team all of a sudden, and that causes a little backlash. But I think for the most part, it's done well. How, you know, for your clients, you know, how has that, you know, helped them, I think?
Well, you know, I think, you know, now this day and age, I think everything is content, right? Content driven, you know, content, right? Yeah. There's no, you know, and I think the post is secondary now, right? Everything is just what videos people, your audience wants to see. What are you doing as an NBA player, even as a rapper, as a singer? Their fans want to know, what are you doing on a daily basis, you know? And I think if you can build some content around that and get your fans' attention, you know, that's when you get those brands that are going to come in and say, hey man, we want to be a part of your brand, right? You know, right. I always tell athletes that you are the brand, and it's important to protect the brand. You know what I mean? And the way you build your brand is you build it organically. And I always tell guys that the best way to do it is through content, right? You know, you tell your story, content. And look, you know, when Nader and Jonathan, you know, Jonathan has a great story, right? Simmons, you know, he got paid you know, $150 to make a G League team, and, you know, worked his butt off and got in. Insane story, insane. And you know, it was my pleasure to put together a marketing campaign for him where, you know, he was on NBA TV, where he able to tell his story. He was on, you know, on different media platforms where he told his story. Same thing with Nader. You know, he was on NBA TV telling his story, right? And I think now you don't really need NBA TV as a platform. You have all these players TV, all these different platforms where you can really tell your story. Back in those days, we only had a few platforms, Dirty Laundry, you had all these small platforms, and you had to really look and find them. Everything is in front of you now, and so if you can put together a good marketing plan for a client and make it all content and execute it on these platforms, and get your audience to see it, brand's gonna come calling, right? Because everything is about how many followers you have, how many viewings you have,
Right.
what's your audience like, who's looking at your stuff, right? Also, it's about numbers, right? So and I think the way you get the numbers, I believe the way you get the numbers is by creating a story. And everybody has a story. It's just, you got to tell your story, and you have to be authentic when you tell the story.
For sure. Yeah, I think it just kind of goes back to what we were saying before about, the fake and real part. And I think people always gravitate towards the real, that they can tell when, some players have burner accounts, and I never understood it. It's like, if you want to say something, you're going to say it. Why do you need a burner account? Or people complaining and whining about, just all sorts of things on Twitter. And of course, it's going to get talked about on shows, which I guess some people want, but I guess you kind of also become a marketing specialist in the way too. So is that the guidance you provide for your players too? And deals and.
Yeah, I have a team that handles all my marketing. I actually dabble in it too because I like to be creative. I consider myself a creative person. I like to sit down and really, work with my team to understand what strategies we're putting in place for each client, right? And how we're going to execute it. I get excited, when I'm putting together these things because, it's like you're building something from nothing, from A to Z, and then you see it come into fruition, and you're like, man, I did that, right? So I have a team that handles it, and our biggest philosophy is being innovative, right? You got to be innovative. If you're innovative, you're going to stand out, and building a brand from scratch. Because when you build a brand from scratch, you own it, and when you own it, you can pick what brands you want to work with.
Yeah, and I think when you give yourself that freedom to make yourself available is when you can, maybe worry less about the financials of the contract and say, well, maybe I can pick up these couple brand deals and just really chase the better opportunity than you become less, I think, concerned about just what the main source of your income is. So I think being able to branch out, and also you have the longevity after your career, you know how to do these things. You know how to build a brand and pick up deals along the way where, maybe one day you're Tom Brady and you get a $37 million a year deal from Fox, but he's built up his social media platform so well and become such a personality, just off the field, that I think that's something important for athletes.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's cool. That's cool. So yeah, that was kind of sort of the end of the questions, but I guess yeah, what kind of deals do you athletes usually pick up?
I'm big on shares. I tell my athletes that it's important for you guys to own. My philosophy has always been is, why would you do a deal? Let's say, let's do a deal with a company that's going to pay you, 70,000 gross, right? After taxes, what are you coming out with? Come out with what? Let's say $40-something thousand. You're making more than $1 million in the NBA, right? What are you gonna do with 40 grand, right? So for me, it's always, I tell them, unless a brand is gonna pay you, 200, 300, 400, 500 million dollars, right? Well, you want to look at getting a piece of the firm. Let's look at the long run, right? Let's look at getting a piece of the firm. if you can get something shares, it's better than getting a small amount of money, because then you're a part of something and you're helping those guys build too. And when you're doing the work that they want you to do, you can sit there and say, I will do this for 9 hours. I got a piece of the company, even if it's a small piece, right? And you're gonna do it to your best of your abilities instead of thinking and saying, man, I'm doing all this for 9 hours and you're paying me 40 grand net, right?
Right.
So you're gonna want to stay on set. You're gonna want to do these Instagram posts. You're gonna want to promote the company, right? Because it's your baby. So I'm big on getting percentages of a company.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like you said, if an athlete's signing for $1 million, what is a $20,000 post to wear a pair of sneakers? But if you own the sneaker company, and I feel like I've seen more athletes do what you're saying recently is, okay, maybe, or like Steph Curry, for example, just as a wide example with Under Armour, that deal made sense for him. It's not just designing a shoe, or even if you go back to Jordan with Air Jordan, like he owned part of that. So what you're saying, Kobe Bryant, it all makes perfect sense to actually be a part of the company, because all right, you wear a pair of Adidas, all right, awesome, but what if you could start a shoe company, grow that, and build that, and hey, maybe that even turns into the full-time thing when you're hang up the sneakers.
And if the company is going to give you a piece of that company, that means they really believe in you,
right?
And they're going to listen to your ideas. So I tell the athletes, man, you want to have a piece, because then not only that, you can also learn everything from the business aspect of the brand, right? And you can educate yourself on how to run a company, right? So it's the best way. It's the best way to do a deal, that if a brand comes to you and says, look, we're going to give them 20 grand. 20 grand. No, let's look at this. I think this is better than 20. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's kind of crazy how the role of a sports agent, I think, has changed so much. I felt like when I was growing up, I always thought like I had to be a lawyer. But I always thought about being a sports agent. But I was like, do I have to be a lawyer to do that? Like, what do I need to do? But I feel like, maybe that was kind of the initial role of a sports manager, sports agent. Deal with the contract, deal with the finances, make sure everything is, correct in there, all the money's right. But now you're a social media specialist, you're a business advisor, you're a business specialist,
everything.
Everything. Yeah. It's crazy how that's involved.
I'm not an investor. I don't touch.
Or more so,
money. I don't touch the money. I don't advise. I don't advise clients on
financial advisor. Not
I don't do any of that. But I do have a guy that does handle that with clients, and I always tell potential clients or clients, hey man, you go talk to him, and he would direct you in the right direction. I love doing this. This is what I love to do. I love to sit down and advise the clients and put together strategies and see a client go from A to Z. To me, it excites me. Excites me. My niche in this business has been taking guys like the Naders, Simmons, the Yogi Ferrells, all these guys, and Shayoks, and helping them make their dream come true. And for me, that excites me. So. Yeah, we do everything, and you have to. This business is not for the faint of heart.
No,
you have to make sure that you have thick skin and you're ready to do everything. You're ready to roll your sleeves up and really go to work in this business.
For sure. Well, I think that's about all I got. But what are? I mean, I think you've discussed a lot. But what are your plans for your agency and athletes, and just anything else you like to add?
My plan is to continue growing. Right? Grow organically, grow with patience. Don't rush anything, right? And continue sticking to my philosophy and sticking to my plan. I think that's the best way that I've done it, and I'm doing it. I always, again, I'm gonna say again, keep your head down, don't put your head up, and keep working. That's my plan. my biggest thing is to, of course, to venture out into other sports. You know, baseball and soccer are my other loves.
Mhm.
And you know, growing this thing to something where people who see athletes sports management, they're like, man, that's the company I want to be a part of.
For sure. Yeah, well, soccer, I mean, it's the biggest sport in the world, right? So lots of opportunity there. Very competitive though, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Yeah, super competitive, and you know, there's a lot of marketing dollars in that business, you know, in that sport, because there's a lot of visibility, right? It's a lot of marketing dollars in baseball, right? It's a lot of visibility. And I love that side of marketing just because it's the creative side. What excites me when you look at marketing.
For sure, for sure. All right, cool. Well, I mean, I'll definitely keep following your story. I mean, it's definitely
Please
exciting.
do. Please
uh,
do. Appreciate it.
yeah, oh, I'm just gonna hit stop right here.